Life as an indentured labourer would prove hard enough. However, the trials and tribulations faced by these pioneers would only be exacerbated by their separation from family. This would have already begun in India, where men would leave home and never return. When they never heard from them again, desperate family members would then undertake the journey from India to the colony of Natal to find their loved ones. Here they would be met with endless red tape and travelling difficulties, only to return home without answers. The harshest reality for many was their separation from each other in South Africa. Child labour was not in the least frowned upon, and one of its offshoots was that children as young as 3 years old would be separated from their mothers and apprenticed on different plantations. Many would spend years, even their entire lifetimes, vexed by the fact that they would never see their parents or children again. The huge disproportion between the number of men and women made the establishment of family for those who wanted to do so incredibly difficult. Women were disillusioned by the level of chauvinism from both indentured males and their white employers, and those who chose not to abide by the rules of such a heavily male-dominated society were chastised, assaulted, and sometimes raped. As the imbalance in the numbers between men and women began to diminish, though, it grew increasingly possible for families to develop and grow. The nature of family life was based on the context. Given the terrible conditions on the plantations, it was more important than ever for families to stick together. Thus, as seen across many South African Indian families today, extended families group together and live under the same roof in order to take better care of each other. It is suggested by some historians that the close-knit family bonds we see today in contemporary South African Indian life has its roots in the way in which indentured labourers were forced to reorganize the family structure against the backdrop of the conditions they faced. As families grew, so did a new sense of hope and expectation. Men and women wanted lives for their children outside of indenture. They could not envision a life for their offspring that involved the kind of suffering that they had undergone. With this came a demand for education and greater access to resources. And it is thought by some that it is this desire for a better life for their offspring, coupled with years and years of inhuman suffering of their own, out of which resistance to the conditions they faced would grow. Emerging out of the need to create a better future for generations to come, came the first impulses to take on the authorities of the time and lay claim to the freedoms that were rightfully theirs.